Righto. IDF training. The focus of this, I'm very much being targeted in this session. Most of you, if not all of you, have already attended either a leaders session or end user training. So we're basically just building onto that information already shared. And we're going to hone in and focus on the maintenance management framework and how it integrates with IDF. So we're not necessarily going to go into the detail around what the MMF is, but certainly at a high level, what's the integration, how is it different, what does it do, and where are those links are. So, and I'm also conscious that the MMF is obviously a developing or evolving thing at the moment, and there's lots of work going on in that space. So we're using this session also as a bit of an intro into some of the new concepts and terms and how the MMF fits in with the asset management system as well. And also just want to finish off today on... Yep. Okay, righto. We're going to do an activity right at the end, just around a bit of a lessons learned, more about where we're handing projects over when we're going from it under the project management framework and then moving the asset into operations. So that project handover, some what's working well now and where are areas for improvement, and that'll just help inform some future pieces and also make sure we've got the IDF right as well for what we need it to do and the governance we're trying to make it do. So this is a picture, and a very complicated picture, apologies, there's lots on it, but this is a picture of the asset management system. So this stuff on the side here. Does my pointer come up to those that are online?
Yep, got it.
Cool. So this side is the asset management system, and that picture actually exists in our asset management policy, or sorry, strategic asset management plan, our SAMP. And it just depicts the different of layers where we start with our corporate standard, and then the asset management system goes down through policy, SAMP, asset management plans, asset life cycle strategies, and then we have optimization and delivery. So one of the things that come quite apparent to us was trying to understand, I guess, in SAP ourselves, where we do a lot of this work, is we understand it quite clearly, but it really hasn't been shared with that broader business. So one of the things we've identified is this asset life cycle strategies is where we do it for each portfolio. So as in each asset class, so we might do water ones or for different networks. The asset lifecycle strategies can be broken into a number of different types. So we have growth strategies or plans. So my team in asset planning are typically doing those. And so they're identifying what assets do we need for that longer term growth. So where we need to increase capacity. The next type of asset lifecycle plan is a renewal strategy. And so that's when, what's our plan for when an asset gets to the end of the life? What are we going to do with it? And then we have maintenance strategies. So they're about what's that overarching rules or methodology about how we maintain. And at a very high level, it's giving that strategic direction. So they're kind of the three elements of when we talk about an asset life cycle. In these growth and renewal plans, we also bring in how are we disposing of assets, because obviously if we're renewing it or replacing it, we have a disposal element as well that we have to factor in. So predominantly, the second two is what happens in performance, asset performance and monitoring, so Niels's team. And albeit I'll preface that with that this is what is being covered, I guess, under that maintenance management framework and how these things look, what's the templates, how do we do it. So it's under development, if I can say that, at the moment. So the other aspects, and this then starts to get into, well, how does IDF and MMF fit into the asset management system? So to start with, the IDF, it's the overarching governance for how we make decisions. And it sits outside, I guess, in a sense, in other business frameworks, because whilst it's used predominantly for capital asset work that are generated out of the asset management system, it also has other functions, and particularly around that operational space for like that business improvement, where while some of it is asset management system, it's other services as well. So then we have the maintenance management framework. And it really it's an enabler for the asset management system. It's the overarching understanding of the documents or the templates we use, and the decision making and the processes and all that we go through. So it actually sits inside of the asset management system as an enabler. And it's probably for context as we move on. There are 3 phases of the maintenance management framework, as we know. So the first one is about planning, the second is doing, and the third is reviewing and updating those plans at the start. So it's a bit of a circle. So we do have software that supports it. So obviously we've got Tech One with the CMMS project happening at the moment. We use paper-based pathway. What were the other ones? SharePoint, Reflect, and Reflect are all types of software or that used to support the maintenance management framework or outwork the work that comes out of it. Does that make sense? Does that help picture where these things fit in? Because yeah. Clint, from an operational side, because these terms get thrown around all the time and trying to figure out how they all fit in and what they do.
Your graph of 3 and the pictogram on the left, that's always been around.
Yep.
So that was good. And it's good to show where that MMS is now. How that integrates.
Yep. Yep. Cool.
I think for me, it points out, you know, that last column in the green there, it's kind of like a bit of where we have gaps, like we're not quite mature in that space.
Yep.
So that it's good to see how that would, where our gap is and what we need to. So the last 2 years, where we have a lot more mystery solutions teams, like the asset planning team, we have a lot more involvement in that growth cycle and they engage with it
and I think
earlier, so we understand what's going on.
Yep. And so if you didn't hear that online, the comment was that at the moment, by laying this out, we see that we have more of a gap, I guess, in these renewal and maintenance strategy and plan space compared to the growth strategies and plan, and it's different level of maturity. And the thing that I found, and on top of what Dee has just said, is around the work we're doing in the maintenance management framework is starting to really unpack, well, what do these look like? What templates do we use? How do we do them? What level do we do them at? And all of that sort of stuff. So, yeah, certainly the gap's been identified, and it's now how do we use the maintenance management framework to guide us to the right direction. So this was just a really simple, often we talk about these frameworks as being just kind of that process picture. The framework is actually made up of a lot of different elements. It starts at the top about the policy, and And I guess I've just shown here the differences between the maintenance management framework versus the investment decision framework. They are slightly different in terms of those different governing documents. So MMF is very much around the asset management system documents, whereas the IDF is, there's an actual policy. So then we drop down, and again, we have the governance level, and it sets the business rules and processes. And then at the very bottom level is how do we actually apply it? And it's the same for both. It's business manuals, templates, processes, tools. It's the whole suite of stuff of it. How do we actually apply this framework? So they're same, but different. So in terms of integration, so the IDF integration with the maintenance management framework, and if you went to the end users training, this is the same slide that we showed, is that the phases of the MMF overlap the phases of the IDF. So the program and plan for MMF effectively is happening during this execute phase. So while we're building an asset or implementing whatever it is we're doing, we're also doing this program and plan. So what's my maintenance? How am I going to operate this? Fitting it into, if there's a bigger maintenance plan, how do we fit this new asset into that? It may not necessarily have a standalone program or plan, but if I'm building a new water main, then obviously there's a whole program already for water mains. So how does it look and how does it fit into that? Do I need more people to operate this thing that I don't yet have? So the idea is once we get to gate 5, we have an asset in operation. So we should also have then our program and planning done from a maintenance and operation perspective. So we're able to hand it over into that operation space and have all the information. And that's also things like spare parts. What are the other things? Brody, phone a friend. So there's a whole heap of things. We'll go through that on the checklist, won't we?
We will.
So, sorry, just on that MMF, I thought, understanding where the program plan is, that's fine. But I thought it would have started a bit earlier for resource identification, because if it's an 8-month project, it takes longer than 8 months to get extra resources in council.
Yep.
Through the current system. So I think further back up towards the gate, so I thought the MMF would have started, and then why don't we go for a short duration to understand what resourcing is required as part of the project. Then it might miss a few steps and then come to program and plan.
Yeah.
Because once again, we want to get to the back end where we're trying to identify resources and the MMF.
Yep.
That's my concern here in this graph.
Yeah, so it's a question of certainly in the IDF, in the business case, identifying resources at that point as part of the business case and doing the whole of life costs. So probably what we need to, it's a really good point, what we need to look at is that enough to flag that early or to do what you just need it to do? Sorry, online, you probably didn't hear that question. The question was, should that program and plan phase of MMF actually be earlier? Because sometimes if we need more resources to operate, then it takes longer than that execute phase length, which could be 6 to 12 months to actually get those resources. So maybe I'll take it as a question. Yeah, it's whether we've got enough in the business case and those early planning phases to cover that and flag that, or whether that's something we need to build into the MMF to look at that. Yeah.
On face on back ending.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the integration too. These aren't they're meant to integrate and the data from one flows to the other. So whilst potentially it doesn't go back, the MMF side, the data you're actually wanting to see is captured by the IDF, and so it flows in. what we need to check is whether we're solving that through the IDF, but then we just transfer into this other framework. But good point. So we obviously do the work, and in the MMF, that's really doing the maintenance programs, operating, and then you have this close and improve phase, which is really just reflecting back on and analysing the outcomes of those programs, and obviously that then feeds back into the start as well. So the MMF is a bit of a looped system, and this operate and maintain phase in the IDF is very much just representing that business as usual operation of these assets. So effectively, there's nothing in the IDF in this phase. That's really where it flips over to MMF of doing the work. Any questions on that? No. I can't see online if there's any questions coming through. Okay, righto. Someone can just keep an eye. Okay, so not that I'm expecting everyone to look at that, and I'm not going to go into it, but just in case you've never seen it, this is, I guess, what do we call it, high-level process map or high-level view of what the maintenance management framework is. And I'm just going to hone on in, I guess, to this program and plan section, because it really is the area that overlaps with IDF. So when we talk integration, we're really making sure that the asset is ready to be operated and maintained before going live with it. So we know in the past we've had a lot of pain points around us not doing this in the right order. So we have an asset that goes live, and we haven't yet got maintenance manuals or critical spares or whatever it might be that we need. So the IDF certainly as a gate 5, so gate 5 is the critical point where we are effectively going live with the asset, and we're building into that questions to make sure that we genuinely are ready to operate and maintain it. And so that goes, the gate 5 is a decision by the sponsor. So the sponsor that's been escalated up to them. Part of it is also obviously making sure all stakeholders have the required information and are being engaged with. And obviously at this point, the operations managers and teams are probably the most critical stakeholder leading into gate 5. And effectively after gate 5, the asset management manager and service provider are ready and are in their BAU mode almost with this new asset. So is that a question? Yep.
Yeah, sorry. I just wonder, are we capturing developer-funded assets somewhere along the line?
So you're meaning where we hand over, where the developer installs a subdivision and
or a pump station, whatever. Obviously it's caught, but is it caught in this, is it displayed or a provision for it in this flow chart?
It will be caught in the MMF, but not necessarily the IDF. That's a really good point, but Don, really good point. And because the IDF, why I say that initially, and I've got to give some thought to that, but why I say that initially not the IDF is because it's not an investment we're making. However, we do end up with the cost of operating and maintaining it in the end. Yeah. So we're being handed assets really at that gate 5. But certainly under the maintenance management framework, we probably need to capture off how we deal with those types of assets. Yep. I got, for those online, I got Dee and Emma in here taking notes of every time everyone has a good suggestion.
Yeah, that was really...
like we've done the capital, but there's an operational element for IDF.
Yeah, so operational investments.
All I'm trying to say, it might be a hybrid. So that type of scenario that I was talking about, where put onto the IDF for a quick gate and come to an end just to make sure checks and balances and we want to take on the asset potentially.
Yeah.
It's another point, isn't it?
Yeah. How do we
Take on that
foresee? And that's really hard to foresee those operating and maintenance costs. We don't have any upfront capital we're spending, but we've certainly taken on. I don't think we have a choice, but sometimes of whether we can take on this stuff from developers.
No, but we would know through the DA. That's what I'm just trying to think.
Yeah.
That might be the process to kick off. Like a mini.
Yeah. No. Let's capture that.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
We do need to look at how we get visibility of those DA works of when they are going to be handed over though, so we can do these same portfolio delivery approaches for the maintenance.
Yeah.
And then our standards or our approvals need to make sure we're getting the inputs for the asset planning team to do their side of things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Righto. Anything else online?
Message from out of the defect liability period.
Oh, good point. I forgot to mention that one. I'll just go back here, Carmen. So defect liability is effectively in this operate and maintain. We made a conscious decision. This come up through stakeholder engagement from my dear friend Clint, sitting next to us here. And we had a lot of toing and froing of where defect, what phase it sits in. Where we landed was that it happens post Gate 6. So Gate 6, we're closing the project when we've done all of that immediate activity, I kind of call it, and that defect liability period is post Gate 6. And we have systems and processes in place through contract management and ECM to call up those periods and check them. The thing we are very conscious and clear on that it is the responsibility of the project manager or contract manager to be monitoring that. So they, even though the project might close at Gate 6, they are still accountable and responsible for that defect period, even though it's post Gate 6. So we made that really clear as well. Righto. Did you want to talk to this, Brodie?
Yeah, probably can. So this flow chart is just showing our project management framework. And again, it's got some swim lanes of the different areas of the business who have roles to play throughout the PMF. Along the top, it's got then overlaid with the gates under the IDF. So where we're looking at the moment with the MMF kicking in is from this execute phase. Probably some of the behaviours driving now with the checklist we've developed for this Gate 5 is going to ensure again that these all the information's provided so that our operations and maintenance team are ready to take on the asset once we do reach this Gate 5, which is typically when the asset's constructed and commissioned. So previously, a lot of the information around ASCONs, the asset management plans, were only being captured and the work done once we were beyond this Gate 5. But yeah, based on the feedback and what we're seeing now, we really need to engage with our asset governance, our PAM team, a lot earlier on in the process. And there's no reason that can't start really at the start of this execute phase. So I might jump to the next slide. So the steps here, the project manager will be updating their stakeholder engagement plan, which is updated throughout the project lifecycle as a whole. The PMF is continuing in this phase, and as we said, they're commencing the maintenance management framework. So I've got a bit of a screenshot there, but yeah, we'll go into more detail now. These are the questions and deliverables we've captured for this Gate 5 checklist. So a lot of it is sort of asset focused now to make sure we have got that information needed to enable success for the teams in the operations and maintenance area. So at this point, the project managers should be making sure that the assets are recorded in our asset register. And we've had discussions with our asset governance team around that, that they can sort of create the shell asset in our asset register with the minimum fields we really need, so that we've got asset IDs assigned for the assets that we are going to be constructed through the works. And then we can use those to inform the O&M manuals. That makes sure we've got the asset in our system ready to go once we hit that gate 5 to start issuing work orders against. So at this gate as well, we should also ensure we've got all our ASCON or ASBELT information in our ECM system, and the survey data is provided through to the asset governance team to update our GIS systems. Critical spares identified and in stock. Have we got the downfield teams trained on the use of the equipment and how to operate it? And also, do we have any regulatory licenses needed for operations? So not all these questions are going to be relevant for all projects, but we have captured some additional requirements in here just so we can answer that question and make sure we're ready to go to operate it once we hit the gate.
And the point of these checklists, it is a combined checklist for the project manager as well as the sponsor, but the sponsor is wanting to see that all of this stuff is done. So there is an option that they may say, go back and you're not yet ready to pass gate 5 because the team is not yet trained or something. So we foresee also there's a lot of questions on here, but it's just until we can get a little bit more mature and build and make this kind of just the way we do things here at GRC, then we've got these questions so everyone knows and knows what they're getting and have to do. So over time, if this may refine and get smaller, or when we start to use this, if there's still pain points happening and there's things that aren't happening and it's not on this checklist, then speak up so we can add it in, because if it's stuff that's regularly being missed but really should be at gate 5, then there's no reason we can't add it to the checklist to make sure we build in that maturity and start getting the consistency across our projects.
So this sort of describes the point we need to be in at that gate 5, but a lot of this work is being done, well, the work is being done in the phase leading up to it.
Yeah.
And potentially before we even start construction works in some case. So there's no need for us to wait until the asset's finished and then start considering developing the management plan, the asset register itself.
Yeah. And look, we've built this as an 80-20 rule. We get this isn't going to work for everything, and we get everything isn't going to meet this exactly. However, it's a step in the right direction, and where we get it wrong or not quite right, then let's learn from it and see if we need to change something or we just need to learn from that for next time. Righto. So in terms of, before we go on to that, in terms of the content, there's no more content actually that we've got that's any different to the end user training that we gave. I guess I'm just curious, is there any questions from anyone or clarity you need, or you feel like you really just don't understand how these two are fitting in together? Is it clear? Yep, makes sense. Yep. Online, does that fit with you, what you expect? Think it's rubbish?
I think as with any new sort of process system, Celisa, like it's going to be a matter of getting in there and start to utilise the whole process and getting your head around it. And exactly as you said, you got 80-20 there. We're going to pick things up, but that's okay. We've got to be doing something, and let's learn from it, and it'll be refined as it goes along.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on that, refining to both at the moment for IDF and the project management framework, there's avenues on Connected you can actually give that feedback through a form. So please do so. If it's not working, if it's not working and you're continually having pain points around somewhere, that's the avenue to give that feedback so we can try and make this better, because this won't be perfect. So exactly right.
That PMF form, Brady, we use the online application to provide some feedback.
Yeah, so as Lisa said, we've got our new Connected Frameworks pages.
I'll show you where that is.
Under our PMF one, we've got a separate page for our working group.
Yeah, so if you go, this is just the home screen. If you go to our council, you can navigate to either the investment decision framework or project management framework, or just go to frameworks in general. Eventually we'll have everything is in this central place. Project management framework, we have the operational arm, which is what used to be called the business project toolkit. It's what out of transformation program they've developed for more those operational investments, and then we got the capital project management. So Brodie, where am I going?
You just clicked on that link for
there.
Yep. So it's just a list in SharePoint essentially, but
You just click new to generate it.
yeah, click new and it gives the option of like this free text field where you can just explain what issues you're having, or you can actually upload a version of the document with red pen or something if you want to speak specifically to one of the documents in the framework.
Yep.
Because the only thing which I'll put in there is we're getting critical spares, which is to keep the asset going, but I know now with the bias, or as an example, a good one, and Rick's probably from a fleet point of view, having operational spares as well. So I'll put that in there. Is there something not thought of that costs us a lot of money to keep going?
Yeah, and if we need to tweak something of ours to say capital N, what, like, you know, like if the language needs to tweak and so people think of it, then
So you're talking just general consumables?
Yeah, so like, and I learned this off Jay, working with different people, picking it up and talking about. Anyway, it's a conversation off online.
Yeah.
It was a good one.
Yeah.
Pick up on.
Can you guys online hear Clint when he was talking then?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Yep, no worries.
Oh, okay, cool. I won't keep repeating him then.
You can summarise it.
I'll summarise Clint.
So these suggestions will go onto that list, and the idea is that the working group then meets quarterly, reviews any of these suggestions, and then formulates any improvements needed and gives feedback to whoever entered it.
Yeah, and look, if you are unsure whether it should be an IDF feedback or a PMF feedback, it doesn't really matter. Just put it in and the groups will liaise and work together. This is all meant to seamlessly work and be one thing at the end of the day. It's just how we do business. They're not got very, rigid boundaries by any means. Okay, so any other questions? The last thing that I had to do was just a bit of a lessons learnt activity. I thought I'd take the opportunity. We've obviously developed IDF, PMF and developing the detail around the MMF, but sometimes it's good to sit back and reflect in terms of handover of projects and assets from that project world into the operate and maintain world. Some, I guess, understanding of what's working well currently and what's not working well. So we've got an opportunity to reflect and see, well, what we've developed so far, is that going to help with some of these things, or is it actually we're going to go backwards and start to feed into some other pieces of work? But before I do that, and I might be opening a can of worms here. I've got some looks here. But I guess it's, if we don't talk about these things and have these conversations, then how do we ever fix them? And certainly the ground rule is we're not here to throw stones at each other. We're here to work out what our problems are and also what's working well, so that we can move forward and make it better. We all come to work for good reasons. But before I go on to that, any questions on, I guess, that integration between IDF, PMF and MMF for everyone that loves acronyms? No?
The only thing I was thinking, we understand this. I know you flagged it and we've done training. Would this become like an Elmo package for somebody into the future? So new starter in 2 years, I'm thinking, to get their head around the PMF.
This session here?
Or just like, is there going to be a training package around the idea MMF and PMF?
Yeah, so there's an Elmo that's been done for IDF. All these sessions have been recorded and will be on the IDF connected page, so anyone could look back. It's probably a gap, and I'll take it down. We haven't yet done or worked out whether these recorded sessions need to actually be embedded in an Elmo and become mandatory training effectively. So yeah, we've got as far as the IDF stuff, but not the rest of it. So, but yeah, fair point. How do we actually make sure that new people are getting this information? They'll get IDF, but maybe not this level. Yeah.
Just eliminate pain points, eliminate transition over.
Yeah, and the Elmo course could be as simple as take this recording and just embed, and that's all it is. It's just a video with a few questions at the end. That's as simple as it could be. Yeah.
Your installation, whatever you
Haha. I've got my 5 minutes of fame. Okay, anything else from anyone? Nope.
I've got my hand up.
Oh, you have. Sorry. Apologies. I'm not looking at the right screen.
Well, there you go.
Fire away.
Yeah, Ian Black. Just wondering about the whole communication situation in the planning stages as to getting all stakeholders involved. Over the last few months, there's been a number of trip hazards that have come to haunt the Parks Department. Has that been given extensive thought to get everybody involved and making sure that the boxes have to be ticked? Sorry, before we go through another step?
Yeah, so you're meaning in terms of right from the planning phase up front?
Right
Ian?
from the planning phase
Yep.
up front. I mean, think about a couple of projects that have been and are still undergoing Blaine Drive roadworks where, right at the start of it, there was a whole bunch of works that impacted parks heavily. That was never thought of and never budgeted for, and the end result wasn't thought of. And just the recent one, Cassie Lives Skate Park, which is that's just come to fruition, which is a great piece of work. The skate park is fantastic, but it now sits in a wasteland because there was no external works thought about to clean it up at the end. So the stakeholders it's a matter. It must somehow, if you haven't spoken with everyone, well then you can't go to the next stage.
Yeah. So absolutely being thought of. Under the IDF, it's mandatory to complete a stakeholder engagement plan. So actually identify your stakeholders, and that's right at the identify phase. So once you pass gate 0, the initial I've got an idea, the very first step is that stakeholder engagement plan. Who are my stakeholder? And then obviously outworking it. In the training, we've made very clear to all the end users that it's not good enough just to write the people down on a list. You actually have to go talk to them and understand how they want to be engaged, so and at what phases, because for different people that changes as a project matures and goes along the IDF phases and gates. So I probably, as part of that, the intent is to help with that issue that you're talking about, Ian, and certainly there's a very strong message of we genuinely are wanting to fix that up and get that engagement happening.
So is there a standard full list of stakeholders that automatically pops up, and then people just eliminate the ones they don't need to come with, or we have to wait for the planners to think about ones that may well be involved?
Yeah, there isn't a standard list. However, and that's probably more just because of time as opposed to anything else. I think as an activity I might capture as a future thing is that we actually, in the business manual of IDF, have who those typical stakeholders are for different types of projects, so that everyone's not having to reinvent the wheel every time. So, or have those examples. So, yeah, it doesn't exist yet, but very good suggestion, and probably something we need to all capture as an action.
I think it's mandatory, Lisa, because I keep saying parks are forgotten all the time in these things. They just don't think about us and the repercussions that it has.
Yep. I think all operational teams has that, and the balance is also what we can also establish then by doing that is get a feel from you guys of how often and how you're involved, because obviously every time we put our hands up to say we want to be involved, that's a time. So just being really conscious of workloads as well, of what is the right times to have the best impact and value of your time into a project. And that might be maybe not every phase, or it's just once during a phase, so that it could look different for different people and look different for different projects as well. So if I can take that as an action item, that we need to give that more clearer guidance about who is the stakeholders, where it's very obvious that they're in these projects, taking on board that feedback. Ian?
Thank you.
Ian, I might just add as well, we've got in our checklist for the select and define phase as well, that we firstly develop our risk register and scope of works in that select phase, but then that's updated as we progress through further design in the define phase. So that's really when we need to be getting stakeholders such as yourself input through those planning phases and make sure we haven't missed out any risks in the construction or operations, and also that we're capturing all the scope of work so we don't miss off any of those items.
Yeah, I mean, the scope of the works is not necessarily just to do what the original thought was. Take Cassie Lives. The scope of works there was to renew the skate park, and that was done very well. It's a great park, and the kids love it, and people travel from all over to visit there. But the ancillary work that's around where it abuts to existing land use was just not thought of and not budgeted for. So you've got to work with the whole scheme that's going to, or every little piece that's impacted, you have to think about that at the get-go.
Yeah, and that really happens as part of the business case too, of, well, what's in scope, what's out of scope, and be really clear of that. So, yeah, good point. Righto. Any other questions or comments? Nope. Okay. Very quickly, we got 15 minutes left, I believe. What is working well, or what could be improved? So I want to really hone in and focus on around, I guess, this project handover. So when we're going from a project that we're executing, so heading into gate 5, and it's then becoming operational. And I know there is a lot of detail things to this, and I'm probably going to keep it a little bit high level, but what are they? We're going to throw them down as a bit of a brain dump, and then in different sessions we'll start to unpack and outwork the solutions to them. So I don't necessarily want the solutions, I just want what's happening. Righto, and I'll start picking on people. The earlier you go, the easier it is, I can tell you now. Brody.
I suppose we've learnt some important lessons recently with some of the projects in the water sewer space that have flow through into what we've put in these checklists. But I think we're starting to engage better and seeing the importance of making sure the training's done. So even as works are being constructed, we're having sessions with the operations teams so that they're familiar with the equipment that's being handed over. And yeah,
Righto.
so ready to go.
Clint, one on either side, or a couple.
What's working well, project maybe? Oh, sorry, I was just looking at it. I was reading. Look, I don't think it's in the project handover, but I think I agree with Brady. We actually have a formalised structure now where we actually have fortnightly meetings to talk about upcoming projects, where we're at from an isolation point of view and where they're at from an operational point of view. So operational interface meetings first week. And the other one is we're getting better visibility of next year's capital projects through the work planning and scheduling team. They're able to send us that list of projects ahead of time so we can discuss that at the start. So the timing, moving around on that.
That's very well done.
I think what could be improved, and it's somewhat been happening with the outworking that's been done around the MMF, is understanding what the inputs we need for that. So in our project space, again, coming back to biosolids, where we have to develop a bespoke asset management plan for that item, we didn't really know what format that had to be in or what detail, but we could actually spec that in the contract and get what we needed at the end of the day.
Riley, told you I'll stop picking on people.
It's easy when you share. I mean, that was definitely improving is like capturing the data after the fact. So that's being like ECM and better eyes kind of being used a lot more lately with the project managers. So that's good to see that we're actually capturing that information where pretty much everyone can actually view it.
Yep.
It makes going back to things a lot easier.
Yep. Rob.
What could be improved is the quality of the asset register.
And when you say quality of asset register, is that in terms of the structure and how it feels and acts like access, or?
No, it's the foundation by which the maintenance actually occurs. So things are recorded, the maintenance is recorded against an asset, but that asset information isn't necessarily handled.
So it's more about that maintenance information being able to record again.
Probably to add to that is to have an understanding at the get-go of what level of data you need in the asset register.
I think that's one of the value of our project team engaging with the asset governance officers at the start of that execution phase. If we're building the shell information around those assets, then we need to know what attributes we need to collect through that execution phase too. Because yeah, often it's too late by the time you've constructed it to then go get pump serial numbers or something.
Righto. Bruce.
Oh, look, I'll bang on
out of the road.
Which
So-
one? Bruce 1, Bruce 2.
Oh, sorry.
maybe.
We got two Bruce. Bruce
Uh,
Bruce McKenzie first, and then we'll flip to you.
okay, I was just thinking with the training, to add to that there, we don't seem to plan the training until it's right on the job. If it's planned early on so that people know that, okay, in the next month, or you can't just sort of dump it on people as such.
Cool. Bruce Robertson.
Yeah, look, I'll bang on about critical spares. It's one thing to have them delivered, but what do we do with them after they're delivered? At the current thing for biosolids, we've had all of our spares delivered, but they're sitting in boxes. There's no thought about what happens after that. We don't have a warehouse at the moment who will actually take them and catalogue them and keep them.
Yep, good one. Who else have we got online? Jump in. I'm conscious we've got 8 minutes left. I think we only had an hour.
Yeah, this is Jade. I've only been here with it for a few weeks and only seen the handover of one project, but I guess my feedback on that is it'd be better to have operator involvement during the functional testing of the equipment. I did see some documentation supplied by the supplier, and obviously he had all his sign-offs, but where the client could sign off, there was nothing. It was just nothing there. So just verification of their work.
Yep, good one. Anyone else?
So Lisa, yes, just a quick one from my side of things. Might have been addressed earlier on. There seems to be a bit of a lag between projects which are identified through or from the maintenance side of the world to get them through into the capital side and delivered in a hurry because of impacting on the maintenance. And I'm talking about drainage projects and things like that, places where we've got issues which might need specialised design. And then obviously money thrown at them to deliver them through a capital budget or even a maintenance one if we can. There seems to be a lag in
Chris.
time. Yeah.
I'm just struggling to hear you.
Okay.
Can you just talk up a little bit for us?
Alrighty. Well, let me see if I can turn this up here. Hold on a second. No, that's the headphones. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you just might have to talk a little louder, but then we can hear you.
All right, so what it is, just there's a lag in issues which have been identified on the maintenance side of the world. I'm talking about more the serious sort of issues that we're having out there with flooding and bits of road which are too steep and they need addressing and things like that, which then have to be developed very quickly into a capital type of project. And then getting that back and delivered in time, so or within a good time frame. So we've got issues sitting across at Agnes Water for the drainage side of things. We've got some steep slopes which need serious design done on them to accept some sort of a solution, but to get that back in time. So there's a bit of a lag in time there.
So can I just, sorry, I'm still struggling. But
get that. Yes.
Can I just repeat what I heard? So issues where we identify a maintenance problem, which needs a capital solution, and there's a bit of lag time actually get that capital solution on the ground. Was that it?
That's it. Yeah, if we can address something like that where we need something a little quicker than going through and putting it into the budget and then waiting to see if it's selected.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm hoping the IDF, how we set that up, is going to help that world, because it would really be identified as an urgent project, and how we do our budget reallocation processes. So let's see.
There are expedited pathways through that IDF and the capital portfolio working group to get some of these, and we are talking these urgent issues through our program to start work on.
Yep. Okay. All right. Now we just need to look at that. Yep.
Yep. Good one. Anything else? Anyone else wants an opportunity online? Rick?
Selisa, I'm Hemraj.
Oh, yes. Hemraj.
Yeah. This when you're taking over water mains and everything, how can we get the information about the pressure testing data and the microbiology data, whether they pass that thing? Who's monitoring that thing at the moment?
So any testing that happens as part of project commissioning will go through to the project manager. So I guess the question, obviously the issue is then you're not able to get access to it, and where do we save it so that you can get easy access?
Yes.
I'm not sure the answer, but I guess probably we can improve if you can't get access. So. Oh, geez, I can't even spell today. Look at me go.
I think we've had some discussions with Clint as well recently, just around how we capture some of these commissioning ITPs in the water space, and then ultimately get that asset
Yep.
operator sign off before we're happy to bring those water mains online.
Yep. Righto. Anyone else from a bit different view? Mitch?
Oh, sorry, so Lisa, I've got one.
Yep, go for it.
I guess it's just more about any of the new installs. I guess it comes back to what Ian was talking about, but understanding how that fits with the existing infrastructure around it. I've had some examples around the weigh bridges and some of the waste transfer stations where we just haven't got that tie-in.
Yep. Yep. Anyone else? 3 minutes. Who else do we have online from a different perspective? Rick, did you have something before?
I was actually going to give you a wrap, Salisa. I think one of the things that's working well is a lot of the stuff that you're presenting can be pretty heavy and really a bit mind-numbing, but I think the amount of people getting involved and giving comment, it's been really refreshing, and we need to keep driving this wherever it ends up. But I think you're doing a superb job, mate. Well done.
Excellent. Thank you. I was going to write my name down there. Lisa was great, but I thought I'd stop.
Pay rise for you.
Oh, Clint. My dear friend, Clint. Righto. Anything else from anyone? Otherwise, we'll wrap up. Nope, I'll take silence as enough. So thank you very much. We'll take them and I'll share with the teams that are, you know, most of it is in the PMF space, a little bit in the maintenance management framework, and we'll start to outwork them. But it's nice to just talk about these things because they are pain points and they are things that we'd all like to solve in a heartbeat, but obviously takes time. So thank you for continuing to show up and be a part of it. Recording will be on Connected if you need to go back to anything, as well as the slides. So that's it. Thanks very much, everyone. See ya.
Thank you. Thank you.